Good evening and welcome to The Chanel Show. COVID-19 has changed the world forever. We'd like to take a moment to remember all those we have lost in Fiji and around the world. May they rest in peace. Our condolences go out to all those who have lost family members, friends, and to those still struggling because of the tough conditions COVID-19 has created. Stay strong and keep fighting. Now, very early on, when the virus first hit our shores, Fiji decided to adopt vaccination as our strategy, as opposed to a nationwide lockdown, which many other countries did. Today, Fiji has one of the highest rates of vaccinations in the world and is on the verge of reopening its borders. 80% of adults in Fiji are fully vaccinated. We'll show you some clips of our country's leaders talking about the strategy early on in the pandemic.
We have our clearest view of a future that is safe and an economy that is on the move. We are not dispensing band-aid solutions or depending on drastic and damaging measures that will cause structural unemployment and wide-scale poverty. We are no longer fighting to win a single battle against this virus. We are fighting to win the war. And we can win because we have vaccines, enough for every adult in Fiji. This powerful defense has arrived more quickly than we dared to hope. As of yesterday, Mr. Speaker, sir, 64% of our target population, in other words, 377,090 adults, have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. And 12.5% of the target population are fully vaccinated, in other words, with 2 doses. We cannot take that progress, Mr. Speaker, sir, for granted when less than 30% of the populations of other upper middle income countries like Fiji have received a vaccine dose. And when, due to unjust issues of accessibility, some wealthier nations administer more vaccines in a single day than other low-income countries at the start of the pandemic. And we thank India for our first large shipment, and then Australia and New Zealand for helping expedite our access to free vaccines for our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you and many in this room know personally, vaccines are safe. They work remarkably well, and they are the key to reopening our economy at its full capacity. And we are pressing ahead quickly to vaccinate every eligible Fijian, which we view clearly as the most essential element to protect ourselves and pave the way to a sustainable and COVID-safe economy and way of life.
As of this week, we have reserved enough vaccines for every eligible Fijian. We expect these vaccines to arrive over the coming months. These vaccines are all the AstraZeneca vaccine, the same I have received along with almost half the adults in Fiji. To be exact, 228,030 of us have received at least one dose. Some people, including frontline workers and other people who are more vulnerable to the virus because of illness or their occupation, have already received 2 doses. They are fully vaccinated, and it won't be long before all of us have the chance to become fully protected as well. From early last year, we have pressed our case to access these valuable vaccines. We had the money to pay for them, but quick access was only reserved for the wealthier nations. Thanks to the support of the Australian and New Zealand governments, Fijians now have expeditious access as well, and we must seize this chance to protect ourselves. We will get through this current ordeal by an intelligent and targeted application of measures to contain the spread until we get enough of us vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. We are looking at the long-term picture, and we are looking at the experience of other countries. And we believe that if we follow some sensible guidelines designed to keep us from gathering indiscriminately in large groups, we can manage this virus while protecting our health, protecting Fijian jobs and businesses, and safeguarding the long-term prospects of our young nation.
We are rolling out vaccines at a rate that surpasses most higher income countries. but our mission is not yet achieved. Our goal is to make vaccines available to every eligible adult in Fiji and to have those Fijians all accept this safe and effective protection. And this vaccine has the overwhelming endorsement of the worldwide medical, scientific, and religious communities. It is helping countries open up around the world, and it will help us do the same. Those who refuse to vaccinate themselves do so at their own risk and at the risk of others. I cannot say it more plainly than that. And I thank the heads of faith who have been vaccinated and are encouraging others to do the same. And we are aiming to vaccinate every eligible adult in Fiji so that we can set ourselves towards a COVID-safe Fiji.
Up till about a few months ago, there was a lot of debate about the vaccination strategy. There was a lot of criticism, not just from politicians, but from many you would not expect it from. At the end of the day, Fiji followed the science, and we are now beginning to see the results. While the fight is far from over, the way we have handled COVID-19 is something all of us can be proud of. Our high vaccination rate is a demonstration of our resilience and resolve and our compassion for our fellow Fijians. More after the break.
People need to recognize that in Fiji. The politicians need to recognize that, but more so, ordinary Fijians need to recognize that by getting vaccinated, getting both the doses, you are actually opening yourselves again up to economic opportunities, employment opportunities. The fact that Qantas has listed Fiji as one of the safe destinations indicates that they have confidence in our vaccination rollout, indicates that they believe that we'll be able to achieve our target, indicates that they believe that Fiji would be a safe place to take Australian tourists to. And so obviously from our perspective, that's great news, but it also means from our perspective that Fiji Airways can also fly to Australia and bring back Australians to Fiji. That for us, of course, is critically important, that our national carrier is able to exercise those privileges also in terms of flying out of Fiji into Australia and bringing tourists to Fiji. The critical issue here is this, is that as we've said, that the vaccination rollout needs to be mutually recognized on a bilateral basis. So the fundamental issue is this. An Australian tourist will not want to come to Fiji or any other country for that matter for a holiday, firstly if the country is not safe, and secondly, that upon their return they have to go into quarantine. Nobody's going to come to Fiji for 1 week holiday having to go back to Sydney for 2-week quarantine and having to pay for it out of their own pocket. So there needs to be mutual recognition of vaccination. So, Qantas, it would appear, has that information that people from Australia coming to a holiday to Fiji won't actually have to go into quarantine. We assume that that's what it indicates.
Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier, Fiji has one of the highest rates of vaccination in the world, with 80% of adults fully vaccinated. We are looked at by many countries as a shining example of how to handle disasters. We've had a lot of practice with cyclones in recent times. NewsHub reports that a group of experts in New Zealand are imploring the Pacific community to take inspiration from Fiji and how Fiji has dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic. Vanessa Prescott, a GP and urgent care doctor in Auckland, urged her Pacific community to trust the vaccine, which studies and worldwide experience have shown to be safe, highly effective at preventing serious illness and death. She also urged Pacific communities to look abroad to Fiji for inspiration. The biggest concern with our community is that you have to see it to believe it, said Dr. Prescott. It's evident with what we are seeing in the stats with our Pacifica community. You can see our vaccination rates are slowly rising, and that's great. Interestingly, going to specific groups in New Zealand, our Fijian brothers and sisters lead the way, with 90% having received their first dose and 71% being fully vaccinated. I think it's important for us as a Pacific community to look back and see what has happened in Fiji. That's right, we are leading and inspiring the world with our COVID-19 response. While medical professionals overseas commend our response, media like Fiji Times and Village, for some reason, continue to interview random people who criticize the effort. Don't get me wrong, criticism isn't a bad thing. It's a sign of a healthy democracy. but getting non-medical professionals to comment on such complex medical matters is quite strange, especially since the media seem to only choose people who want to criticize everything. I wonder what that's about. If I've got a medical problem, the first thought that crosses my mind isn't to go to Biman Prasad or Mahendra Chaudhary for medical advice, or the plethora of non-medical NGOs, most of whom don't even present annual reports. The Fijian government must be commended for how they've handled this. Handling any crisis is not easy. There are variables upon variables to consider, and the situation can change at any moment. From the very beginning, there was criticism. Some even suggested Fiji Airways was an unnecessary expense. Yet, despite this, the vaccination rolled on. Help was provided in terms of groceries and $360 to Fijians. Loans to small businesses are keeping many of them afloat. We are hoping to have tourists back soon, and aren't we lucky that we have our own national airline to fly them in? Imagine if our leaders had listened to those suggesting Fiji Airways be shut down or suggesting that we lock down our country. We would be in a lot of trouble right now.
Short. And because we kept our eye on the long-term prospects of the country and committed to maintaining the Fiji Airways fleet, we are ready to open our runways and welcome tourists to travel safe areas throughout the country. If some politicians had it their way, we wouldn't have the planes in Fiji left to fly anyone. Their short-sightedness would have inflicted permanent scars on our aviation sector. When our borders reopen, huge chunks of tourism revenue would fly out of the country and into the accounts of foreign carriers. Instead, ladies and gentlemen, we committed to our national carrier through a challenging time, and today, Fiji Airways is ready. Its fleet is ready. And these academy halls are open to current pilots and cabin crew and those who dream of one day taking to the skies. Thanks to that foresight and the efforts of many with us this evening, we can celebrate the future of flight in Fiji and the Pacific. Not only the resumption of regular travel to our shores, but the next generation of flying Fijians who will keep our region connected to the world for decades to come.
Even the most staunch critics must give credit where it's due. After the break, COVID-19 isn't the only thing trying to kill you. Welcome back. COVID-19 isn't the only threat to Fijian lives. There is another looming killer: dangerous driving. Over the weekend after the borders opened, the Fiji police force reported that 452 drivers were booked for speeding and 11 drivers were booked for drunk driving, leading to the cause of 2 very serious accidents. Here's the statement from the police. 452 drivers were booked for speeding from 6 a.m. Saturday morning to 6 a.m. this morning. The Western and Southern divisions recorded 202 and 103 bookings, respectively. The Northern Division recorded 68 bookings, while 49 bookings were made in the Eastern Division. Apart from the worrying trend of speeding, arrests for drunk driving are of equal concern, with 11 arrests made. 4 arrests were made in the Southern Division, 6 in the West, and 1 in the Eastern Division, and those arrested were aged between 24 to 59 years. 2 serious accident cases were also recorded during this period. The first case was recorded in the Southern Division, whereby a 28-year-old electrician, was injured after he was allegedly hit by a vehicle driven by a woman along Pritam Singh Road, Tuirara. The driver allegedly fell asleep, causing the vehicle to veer off the road, resulting in the accident. The victim remains admitted at the Colonial Memorial Hospital as investigations continue. In the second incident, an 18-year-old student is under investigation after the vehicle he was driving allegedly collided with another vehicle driven by a 53-year-old businessman along Queens Road near Visaisei, Lautoka. The suspect allegedly overtook the victim's car whilst he was trying to turn into a side road, resulting in the accident. 2 of the passengers traveling with the suspect were admitted at the Lautoka Hospital after sustaining injuries. This morning, a vehicle driven by a man in his 30s while traveling from Navua to Lautoka with 4 others veered off the road and tumbled along the Queens Road. A woman in her 50s has been conveyed to the Nandi Hospital for treatment as investigations continue. Road accidents can be avoided if all road users remain vigilant at all times. The Fiji police force anticipates a lot of social activities with increased movements on our road. As such, we hope that all road users will be mindful of their safety and take necessary safety precautionary measures. Traffic officers will be out in numbers. However, the onus is on everyone to play their part. Everyone needs to adopt the mindset of compliance whether the police are visible or not, as it will and can prevent injury and the loss of life. The Land Transport Authority of Fiji is also concerned. Here's their statement. The Land Transport Authority of Fiji has expressed disappointment at the increasing number of motorists who disobey road rules and are putting the lives of Fijian road users at risk. This comes after reports from the Fiji police force that from 6 a.m. Saturday, October 16th to 6 a.m. Monday, 452 drivers were booked for speeding and 11 drivers were booked for drunk driving, leading to the cause of 2 very serious accidents. LTA board chairperson James Sawane said that these numbers demonstrated the complete lack of regard some drivers have when it came to ensuring their safety, as well as that of other road users. In fact, more than 452 drivers were booked for speeding and 11 for drunk driving within a space of 2 days. This is alarming and raises a great deal of concern about whether Fijian drivers truly understand the responsibility they bear while driving. Road rules, road signs, and speed limits are very clear. If you plan your travels properly, I see absolutely no reason for driving beyond the given speed limit. This is sheer irresponsibility. LTA acting CEO Iramaya Rokosawa added that as Fiji moves closer to the festive season, it is imperative that motorists take safety measures on Fijian roads, even more seriously as traffic movement is expected to increase in the coming months. Each driver has gone through a rigorous process to attain their driver's license, and this is not a responsibility to take lightly or to take for granted. It is not merely a plastic card that you carry around with you. It signifies the trust that we have placed on a driver, and we urge each licensed driver to stand in solidarity with us and abide by the road safety rules and speed limits for the safety of all road users. The LTA family also offers their thoughts and prayers to those families who have been affected by tragedies on Fijian roads and wishes a speedy recovery to those who have been injured. Indeed, these are extremely worrying statistics. Understanding why speeding and drunk driving are dangerous is not rocket science. When you get behind the wheel while drunk, you aren't just endangering yourself, you're gambling with the lives of every single person on the road. And frankly, no one has the right to do that. It is selfish. People need to understand that when they make such irresponsible decisions, the actions do not just affect them. Don't be the reason someone loses their mother, father, sibling, or child. Consider the indescribable pain that such a loss would cause a fellow human being. As the holiday season approaches, I know that all Fijians are looking forward to spending Diwali and Christmas with their loved ones. And for many, this will involve visiting a family member or friends in different parts of the country. If you plan to drive, drive safely and responsibly. If you see someone about to get behind the wheel while intoxicated, speak out. Your words could help save a life. That's all we have time for today. Until next week, good evening and take care.